Hey gang, this is Nate on the Stone. Welcome back to my channel. Hope that you're all safe and well. If there is one bright spot to the world, it's that some things will never ever change, even in the midst of a global pandemic. True, thousands of people are dead or dying, millions have lost their jobs, and most people around the world are suffering to some extent or another from the coronavirus pandemic. Which means that this is the perfect time for some good old-fashioned virtue signaling. Last month, Victoria's Secret started its Spring 2020 campaign, entitled Bodies by Victoria. Nothing all that surprising about that, except that this campaign is another in a long line of historic moments. Because this campaign was the first one to feature,
hold on to your butts,
two plus-sized models, Candice Huffine and Solange Van Doorn, plus the company's very first transgender model, Brazilian Valentina Sampaio. Both Huffine and Sampaio have been touted as underdog stories. Huffine signed a plus-sized modeling contract at the age of 16 and was the first plus-sized model to be photographed for the prestigious Pirelli calendar, a legendary publication for the multinational's VIP advertising clients, as well as being the first plus-size model featured on the cover of Vogue Italia in 10 years, something which Huffine says was a game changer, because until that point, according to her, plus-size models were not seen in an edgy, high-fashion sense. Sampaio, for his part, according to the WWD, quote, is a 22-year-old transgender model from Brazil who began his career walking in Sao Paulo Fashion Week. He was subsequently cast in the ad campaign for the collaboration between L'Oréal Paris and Balmain in 2017. He also appeared on the cover of Vogue Paris for the March 2017 issue, marking the first time a transgender model appeared on the cover of any Vogue edition. He has since appeared on other Vogue covers, including the Brazilian and German editions, and on the covers of Elle Mexico and Brazil, and in the pages of Vanity Fair Italy and Marie Claire Brazil. Just another win for tolerance and diversity, am I right? Except maybe in this case it would be more accurate to say a desperate attempt to pull bacon out of the fire. Last year, Victoria's Secret was embroiled in what was for it a major scandal, when its chief marketing officer, Ed Razek, was fired from Secret's parent company, L Brands, after working for the company since 1983. The reason? In 2018, in an interview with Vogue magazine, Razek had said that definitely, absolutely not, would any quote-unquote transsexual models be featured in a Victoria's Secret fashion show, because, according to Razek, the shows were 42 minutes of high fantasy, where women could dream of being some of the sexiest women in the world, and men could dream about, well...
What do you think it's on my mind? Parcheesi?
The blowback from this interview was so severe that Victoria's Secret didn't even have a show in 2019. Now, call me cynical if you want, but there is definitely the smell of political opportunism running all up and down this story. And don't think for a minute that politics wasn't what was going on here, gang. Politics, pure and simple, is what has been going on here. In an interview with Elle magazine, Sampaio said, quote, "We are experiencing a moment, an evolution, and it is a positive one. Brands are finally learning and catching up to the importance of inclusivity and diversity. It is a hugely important moment not only for myself but my community and beyond. I am so happy that VS is moving closer to embracing all women by hiring their first transgender model. I also wish it hadn't taken them this long." Huffine posited the same sentiment in an interview with the Washington Post in 2015, where she made it absolutely clear that she wants people to understand that plus-sized models are now the new normal, and just the way that things are, not worthy of interviews, op-eds, and news pieces, as was the case with her. The Washington Post piece then said this, quote, "Though she understood the separation for the industry when she was first signed, she now wonders if plus being in front of my title as a model is becoming as harmful for young girls as seeing really skinny girls. Because if a girl is larger than me and I'm called plus, And then they're always like, what does that make me? Now you might be thinking, who cares if Victoria's Secret is going the whole social justice route in order to score virtue points from our culturally enlightened leaders? If VS wants to go woke, then they can also go broke. What's to worry about? The reason to worry, and the reason for this video, is that even though woke products might not be profitable, though that sure as hell hasn't shut down Hollywood, Dick's Sporting Goods, Starbucks, Whole Foods Market, Wells Fargo, and all the other businesses that have put ideology front and center. And even while we wait with breathless anticipation for the fall of the House of Cards that has been promised to us for the last 20 years, and which always seems to get delayed, VS's decision here and now will normalize not only trans ideology, but also being overweight. This has been the goal now for some time. We're now told that criticizing obesity, which includes just telling someone that we think that they could afford to lose a little weight because we care for them, we love them, and we don't want to see them fall prey to any of the myriad health problems that can come about because of obesity, is fat phobia, an oppressive mindset that is baked into our society through racism and colonization, and which is reinforced through day-to-day things in our everyday lives like our clothes, our healthcare, and our TV shows. Danny Beckett, a writer at Vice, actually said in 2018 that to create a fat utopia where all bodies are welcome would require thin privileged people to unlearn our preconceptions, behaviors, and language. In the area of trans ideology, we are now told that dead naming, referring to a trans person by their old name or referring to them by their biologically correct pronouns, is actually violent. The transgender celebrity Laverne Cox, whom you might remember as the person that Time put on its cover back in 2014 when it declared that trans rights were the new frontier of civil rights, said in 2018, quote, "I have been saying for years that misgendering a trans person is an act of violence. When I say that, I am referring to cultural and structural violence. The police misgendering and dead-naming trans murder victims as a matter of policy feels like a really good example of that cultural and structural violence." Hell, you can't even say that a trans woman was at one point in time a biological boy. Piers Morgan found that out to his chagrin when he was raked over the coals for that very thought crime back in 2014. Victoria's Secret's new campaign, though, takes this a step further because it actually attacks beauty. This might be kind of hard to see at first because we have inherited a very subjective idea of beauty. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, we say. And if someone that we bump into finds a pail of garbage or a rotting deer carcass beautiful, then we're more than likely just to shrug our shoulders and think, well, it takes all kinds to make a world. Who am I to say that a deer carcass isn't beautiful to him? But beauty isn't subjective. It can't be. A pail of garbage cannot be beautiful and not beautiful at the exact same time for two different people. If it did, that would break the principle of non-contradiction, which is the cornerstone of logic and rationality as we know it today. The two absolute best thumbnail definitions of beauty come from the German philosopher Friedrich Schelling, who said that beauty is the finite presentation of the infinite, and the late great British philosopher Sir Roger Scruton, who said that beauty is the real in the light of the ideal. To put this philosophical language into plain English, beauty shows us how the world is supposed to be. Not every guy looks like Michelangelo's carving, and not every family, not every social event looks like a Rockwell painting. But what these genuinely beautiful pieces of art show us is the real, the finite, us, the world around us, in light of the ideal and the infinite, how things actually should be. Now, why is this? Because beauty is also the intersection between truth and goodness. In fact, it's because beauty is this intersection that it can even show us the infinite in the first place. That sounds a little confusing, but stay with me, gang. Infinite things are the only things that can satisfy us in the long term. Think about all the finite things that surround us and that we use every day. Food, water, sleep, sex. No matter how many times we use these things, they never last us. We get hungry, thirsty, and tired again. The euphoria from sex fades away. Only infinite things can actually satisfy us for the long term, because infinite things are the only things of which we can never have too much. And in fact, it's for this reason that infinite things are the opposite of finite things, because as we know from our own experiences, it is very easy to have too much of a finite thing, so much that it actually starts to hurt us instead of helping us. Too much sleep makes us lazy and dull. Too much food makes us slobs, pigs, and prigs. Too much sex makes us animalistic. And the two primary infinite elements, or transcendentals, if we wanted to give the philosophical term for them, of which we can never have too much, are truth and goodness. We are attracted irresistibly to the truth because we have an innate magnetic desire to know. Seeing a morally good action like a fireman rescuing a child from a burning inferno gives us the feeling of elevation, which the psychiatrist Jonathan Haidt describes as a mixture of awe, reverence, and admiration. But fat acceptance and trans ideology are directly opposed to truth and goodness. Trans ideology lies about human nature, saying that it is entirely dependent on our own feelings and choices, thus twisting it into something that it isn't and something which it can't be. Fat acceptance pushes the lie that an unhealthy lifestyle, an unhealthy weight, is just as good, just as equal as a healthy lifestyle and a healthy weight. And since neither one are true or good, then neither one can be beautiful. But this is the exact thing that Victoria's Secret is actually pushing in their campaign. Now, having said all that, let me make one thing absolutely clear. I'm not saying that physical beauty is the high watermark of beauty itself, and that you have to look like a VS supermodel in order to be beautiful. There are other elements to beauty besides just physical appearance, things like moral beauty and spiritual beauty. Those are kind of necessary things for someone to be genuinely, truly beautiful. The attack on beauty that Victoria's Secret is engaged in is coming again from their attack on normality. By bowing up fat acceptance and the trans ideology with some of the most beautiful people in the world, lingerie models at that, VS is telling the world that trans and heaviness are both beautiful, and thus true and good. Which, as we've seen, they are not. This is not a cruel, mean, unjust, or bigoted thing to say. In fact, it is a very necessary thing to say, especially in the subjective culture that we live in, so that everyone, regardless of race, sex, orientation, ethnicity, culture, socioeconomic status, etc., can be reminded of what real beauty is, so that they can actually seek out what is genuinely true and genuinely good. Because at the end of the day, it's not about scoring political points. It's about wanting people to genuinely flourish. But as usual, what say you? Is beauty an actual definite quality that we need to experience in order to help find the true and the good? Or is it something that is completely subjective and up to one's interpretation and taste? As always, let me know your thoughts, ideas, and opinions in the comment box below. Well, that about wraps up everything for right now, gang. If you liked the video, whether you agreed with me or not, then don't forget to show your support by giving it a like and sharing it with your friends on social media. And if you like videos about the culture, politics, and religion, but from a unique POV, then subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications so that you'll always know when I post new videos on the channel just like this. As always, thank you very much for watching, for giving me a little bit of your day, and thanks to all of you out there who have already subscribed to my channel. Until next time, gang, stay safe and dare to read, think, speak, and write. Ciao.